Okay. Hi there. Can I kick off?
Yes, yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Okay. Well, look, good afternoon, everybody. It's Mick from Shirnding from Arc Minerals. Thank you for joining. I thought as we head towards the end of the year and before we go into close period, because we're going to close period, I think, from tomorrow for the next month or so ahead of our results, it would be a good idea just to have a quick update on where we are. And look, I think leaving aside the share price, which we can come on to later, just to kick off to say, really, I am tremendously pleased with what we've achieved this year. I think we've achieved well beyond what we had hoped to achieve. Certainly, starting off with Zamsort, taking control of this asset in a very short space of time. The drilling got underway. We're still busy with that drilling, although we're sort of more than 2/3 way through now. And that really is tremendously exciting. As you know, we're sitting on about 1,000 square kilometers. Calibre is, just to put that in perspective, is a 4 square kilometer small mining license. So, given the rest of the potential of this license, we've only just started chipping away. So please bear that in mind. We do think we are sitting on a potentially very large copper and cobalt system at Calibre alone, that is at various places, over 140 meters in thickness. That continues to grow. So far, we've explored a sort of 500 by 500 meter grid, and we're now stepping out that drilling, really sort of down dip, to see how potentially big this could be, and potentially, as I've said before, this could reach up to sort of the 5 kilometer distance, which we're looking at now. We've just moved up a diamond drill rig, actually up to an anomaly at the 5 kilometer zone. So we'll report back on that shortly. I think what we're seeing is that we're seeing disseminated cobalt right throughout all of the drill holes that we've done to date, and that is very interesting, and that has come as a surprise to us, and obviously that has implications for our little plant that I'll come into in a minute. People have asked me in various emails, has there been interest from the majors or any other mining companies in terms of what we're doing at Calibre? The short answer is yes. We have a number of NDAs now signed up. All of them are with the very large mining companies, and we are in discussions with them. We've had 3 site visits. And I think, there is continuing interest. None of them have walked away, because I think what we're sitting on is potentially very interesting. As you know, I'm by nature conservative, so I'm not going to overpromise. I'd rather over-deliver. What we are doing, we're doing this in a professional and structured way. So we're unpacking obviously what we have at Calibre. We're also unpacking what we have in terms of the bigger property of Zamsort, the 1,000 square kilometers, because we believe there are a number of further very interesting targets and anomalies there. And as some of you may know, we've just completed an airborne survey, which will help us a lot in terms of matching the geophysics with the geochem data that we have, but also the circa 28,000 soil samples that we're busy processing now, and which we will finish over the next sort of 8 weeks or so. And together, putting that information together, we will have a much better idea of what we're sitting on over the wider Zamsort property. And we're not going to rush to bring in a partner until we really know definitively ourselves what we're sitting on, because we clearly need to know that before we enter any sort of transaction. But we're moving fast, I can assure you. We have also brought in a third-party consultancy to help us identify and put together this information and identify further new drill targets and properties within our Zamsort license area. The discovery team that identified Kamoa, which is one of the biggest recent copper discoveries in the DRC, which Robert Friedland was behind. We are using that same discovery team to help us put together this information and identify, the targeting work, and that's going to be very helpful in certainly in any further discussions with potential interested parties. So I'm in a nutshell tremendously excited about what we have at Zamsort in terms of our exploration area, and there's a lot going on as I've just set out. The drilling, as I say, is ongoing. We've moved one of the RC drill rigs to the 5 kilometer zone. We are also moving a rig to both to the east and west of further south, and we'll be reporting back on that. It's fair to say, I think, that the assay lab that we're using has been slow, and I know I'm as frustrated as some of you are that we haven't had more results, but they will come through. We are looking at an alternative assayer as well. So we've had some teething problems there on the ground with the assays coming through in the sort of timeline that we'd like to do. In terms of the plant, as you know, this is an asset that we inherited from the previous management. I mean, it was sort of circa 3/4 constructed. It was done before the resource was properly analyzed and identified, and so it was sort of done the wrong way around, if you like. But nevertheless, I think having this plant there is interesting, and so we decided as a board to finish this plant, and I'm pleased to say, for a relatively modest sum of at the moment sort of around $300,000 to $400,000 final spend. We're very close now to dry commissioning in that, and certainly that will be done over the next 2 or 3 weeks. We are doing, as the announcement indicated today, we are doing further work, really because of the prevalence of cobalt. We are doing further work to really identify the mode of processing, and so we're looking at really two sort of systems, and one using conventional sulfuric acid, but that is expensive. We're obviously wanting to reduce costs as much as we can, but the other route that we are looking at is using sodium bisulfate, and that is significantly cheaper than using acid, to the tune of probably a sixth of the price or thereabouts. We've sent 700 kilos of samples for test work specifically on the sodium bisulfate route, and that looks very encouraging, showing sort of rates of recovery of 80% plus for both cobalt and copper. So it looks as if we're going to be producing a separate cobalt and a separate copper concentrate using this system. But we've got some further work to do, but we will be finishing that over the next few weeks and reporting back on that. Some of you may know I'm involved with Fideri. I'm chairman of Fideri, which is quite an interesting new technology system that we're using in South Africa, extracting titanium dioxide through the University of Leeds, and we're using the same consultant who I've been very impressed with, and he's a very successful individual based out in Zambia who is assisting us with the sodium bisulfate route. So that is potentially a game changer for us. So that's on the plant, and we will report back on that. In terms of the rest of the portfolio, I've talked before about either finding a JV partner for CASA and/or potential outright sale. We have signed a number of NDAs, particularly with a number of Chinese groups, and that work is underway. I can't really report much back on that at this stage. There are, we've got a data room. There are a number of parties in that data room, and I suspect, given that the DRC elections are set to take place, I think, on the 23rd of December, that we're not going to get any sort of quick decision before then. But in the meantime, we'll obviously continue those discussions. We are also finalizing work on the scoping study. I haven't rushed into doing that, mainly because I want to preserve cash for Calibre and because we are in discussions with other parties who've indicated that they would be in any event doing their own scoping study. But we will be continuing a parallel route there. And then on Slovakia, we've got a number of interested parties there. One of the offers that we've had is too low, and we've turned that down. We're not going to fire sale this asset. We think gold will have its day in the sun again, and Eastern Europe is coming back. A number of you have seen, particularly some Australian groups who've got quite interesting developments in Serbia and other places, who have expressed interest in Slovakia, and I think that may have opened up a potential new avenue for us. And so we want to keep our options open there rather than just get rid of the asset at any price. It is a potentially valuable asset. It's not costing us anything other than a few thousand euros a year, and so I think it's best to hold out and see what price we can eke out for that asset. So, operator, that is really all I have to say as a sort of opening introductory remarks, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Nick. So if anyone would like to ask a question, it's #1 to unmute your line. And then if you could possibly remute it after the question, that would be good as well, because we've got quite a few people on the call. I will kick off with one question, actually, Nick, myself, and that is, it's good to hear that there's progress on the CSD plant. And I just really wanted to ask you, do you have an idea of when you might start getting first revenues and what they could look like?
Look, we do have an idea what they may look like. We've also secured the material needed for that plant. We've got a stockpile of about 10,000 tons. We've employed a mining factor to move another 30,000 tons, really from the grade control holes that we've announced this morning up to the plant. Look, initial indications are that it will be profitable, but we have got to finish the further test work on with using sodium bisulfate. So I think it'd be premature to give you any forecast on that. But look, certainly we'll be running sort of on a batch processing basis, if you like. Hopefully, starting in early December, right throughout January, and then seeing what we have.
Great.
I might add just on the plant. I've been around long enough to know that these plants can have a tendency to go wrong, and so we've been extremely careful in terms of allocating limited amounts of capital to the plant to be absolutely sure that what we have eventually is going to be profitable and that we don't throw good money after bad. I'm hopeful that we will end up in that position, but one has to be extremely careful with something like this. And as I said to people before, this is not the tail that wags the dog. The big prize obviously is our exploration, and that is where our priority is. But we will pursue this plant given it's there, and hopefully generate some revenues. We're also looking at potential ring fencing the plant with potentially some debt if it's able to produce profitable revenue, and that could be very useful for us going forward as well. But those are all options we're looking at.
Afternoon, Nick. Joel Deacon. Just some follow-up questions to with regard to the processing plant. In terms of the kind of discount to the LME copper cobalt prices, obviously you'd be selling a concentrate. What are you able to give an indication as to the type of discount that would attract? Now, I have some financial modeling that I've done. I'm currently using a 50% discount for transportation and smeltering, which is probably overly conservative. Are you able to give an idea of that type of discount?
No, I'm not, to be honest. And look, we're only we've talked to potential off-takers who have all sort of expressed interest, but we really need to know the sort of volumes we're going to produce and where it might go to, whether we might go to somewhere local or further afield. So I'd prefer not to sort of speculate on sort of end pricing there. But you're right. I mean, I think your conservative approach is right. If we can get a better price, then so be it.
Okay, thank you. And is the plan still for 35 to ramp up towards 35,000 tons per month, as was previously suggested on the website?
Again, I think we will have to finish this test work before we can update on that. So it'd be premature to do that, because ultimately, taking a conservative approach to this, if it isn't profitable or marginally profitable, there's no point in sort of ramping this up and putting through huge OpEx. So if you can bear with us for another month or 6 weeks, we'll be able to give you a much better idea post that.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. And I guess could you provide any commentary just on the share price? I mean, I think it's ridiculously low. Are you aware of any large sellers or any reasons other than general market conditions?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm as frustrated as you are. Am I worried about it? No, because I think ultimately economics will out. But if I could buy, to be honest with you, if I wasn't in closed period, I certainly would, as I have been doing today. I agree with you. The valuation, I mean, I always say managers shouldn't comment on valuation, but I'm going to comment briefly. I think it is a sort of crazy valuation at the moment. We've been as high as 5.5p. So I think it is a great opportunity. But look, markets, the general sort of bigger indices are all off and quite volatile, and so I'm sure there's a knock-on effect with juniors like us. We're also hearing that there's some stocks that have been particularly badly hit recently, and so people take profits in stocks like ARC and to cover their losses elsewhere. I mean, so who knows? But I don't expect it to last. I think the macroeconomic background is extremely positive. I was talking to the UBS investment research team yesterday in terms of all of the big macro factors out there, principally the US and Europe, but ultimately for us, of course, China, and all of that is looking still very good, very positive. And so we don't see any sort of major cloud that is going to impact demand for metals and up long term. So on the macro side, I think it's good. I mean, turning to our stock, I mean, there have been some holders in CASA who've been, of course, tied up in that stock. Just to remind you, I mean, some of the institutions that got involved there, I mean, these are tiny amounts of shares they hold. But when they bought in at $40 a share, and just to recount, we acquired CASA at 60 cents per share. They are sitting, as frustrated holders in CASA over many years, and I think some of that stock is dribbling out now. That's what I understand, because the lockup period is over. But I think, and I think that's what happened this morning, actually. As I understand it, virtually all of that stock is now done. So we should have a reasonable, clear way forward, going from here in terms of the known sellers that we're aware of.
Okay, that's it for my questions, Nick. But I just want to say, as a shareholder, thank you for all your hard work, and I've been very impressed with everything you've done to date.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Nick. It's Gaj speaking here. And most of the questions that have been asked, I had on my list, so I appreciate that they've been asked. And I just wanted to thank you as well for all your efforts. I've got some simpler questions left now. First one is, how many rigs have we got going at the moment in Zamsort?
Yeah, we've got 3 rigs. So two diamond and 1 RC. The RC rig has had some problems recently. So for the last 2 weeks or more, actually 3 weeks almost, it's actually been down. So we haven't been doing the RC rig hasn't been drilling, which is a bit annoying. But that has now been rectified. So we should get that going. I mean, look, so far the rains haven't hit. But as you know, when they do, it's torrential. So I think we're doing as much as we can right through to the end of the year. January and February obviously are the sort of peak months of the rainy season there. Drilling is still possible, and we'll have to assess it at the time in terms of how heavy the rains are. It's not so much drilling, but it's moving the rigs around in very wet terrain, which is the hurdle. But look, I mean, just to come back to what we've done to date. I mean, if you work out the numbers of having drilled roughly 500 meters a strike, 500 meters down dip, take a thickness of 80 meters, and 2.5 specific gravity. You can come up with a figure of, around 50 million tons of sort of a potential resource in the ground there. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that is the economic JORC resource that we would have, but, to date, that gives you an idea of what we think, just with that little bit of drilling that we've done, let alone what we might discover at 3 or 5 kilometers, what we have at Calibre alone. And I think that, to me, is the really exciting bit. And, all the feedback we've had from the majors that have looked at this is not so much, and people moan about, well, shouldn't you have 1% copper? Well, the ideal is with 1% copper, but, we're sitting with pretty much similar grades that we're seeing at our neighbor at Kalumbila, sort of, around 0.5% or more copper or copper equivalent with the cobalt. And that's quite interesting to the majors. I think what is really interesting to them, though, is not so much the fact that there's grade there, but really the potential large system that we're sitting on. And that is very interesting because, obviously, if you're sitting on something that does extend out much further, which we're hopeful of, then you could be sitting something like seeing another sort of Kalumbila type deposit, which is obviously why there's so much interest being shown by other parties.
That is really exciting, and based on previous calls, I think it sounds like we're potentially exceeding our target for the end of the year already. So great work on that.
Also, I mean, the other point, sorry to cut in. The other point I'd just add is that what we're seeing from the diamond drilling, but also the RC, is that it's always soft, and so especially the RC, you'd expect sort of chips to come up. It's more like very soft, powdery material that's pulling up. So the processing down the line versus, say, the sort of, as we understand it, what Kalumbila is going to be both cheaper and a lot quicker pushing any material through any plant. So this is a sulfide, not the oxide I'm talking about. So that is quite encouraging, and that I think this is interest as well.
Brilliant. Something you said earlier has made me a little bit curious, because if I recall from a previous interview on Proactive, you mentioned that there was 2 NDAs around the Zamsort area that we had. It sounded like there may be more now, more interest. Is my assumption correct, or Are we still talking to the same two parties?
No, your assumption is correct. So we have more than two. In fact, we have 5 at the moment.
Would you be able to confirm if they're all majors, or
Yes,
have we got a mix?
They are all majors.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's all my questions as well.
Okay.
It's very exciting, and thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Hello, Nick.
Hello.
Hello, hi, it's Terry Rouse here.
Hi, Terry.
Excuse me, you can probably hear I'm a bit chesty. I've got a couple of questions.
I got your regular emails. Please send me more.
Kidding. No, don't encourage me. What a couple of questions I've got for you. The first one, the aerial surveys we've done seem to be pulled out of the hat very quickly. Were they as a result of some of the JVs we're talking to?
It was as a result of our work. Both the recommendations by our local first-rate geological team on the ground. We've got 3 very senior geologists. Some of them you'll know, Vasily Karelas, who is spending a lot of time out there. He's in fact out on site now. I was there last week with him. He's continued to stay there. I think he's on the line, so if you have any detailed geo questions, Vasily should jump in. So it's partly as a result of there, but also the work of our third-party consultancy, which strongly recommends that we do this airborne survey, which will enable us to really match the sort of geochem, this geophysical data, and then really enable us to have, if you like, a more grown-up conversation with our potential partners.
Okay. Well, the second question I've got is as a result of I think it's just until the end of the year, we've got the option of another 6% of Zamsort. Are we going to take it?
That is an option, and we haven't come to landing. Actually, when you work it out, because it's diluting against our shares as well, so it's actually not as big as 5%. But I think net it works to about 2.7%. We're going to work that through with our partners, Kapara, and we'll make a decision. I don't think either way it's actually a huge deal, but we're in a partnership and we want to work that through with them.
Yeah, it doesn't make a huge difference now, but if we end up with multiples of the SP, it makes a huge difference at the end.
Of course.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So you let us know about that.
We will indeed. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, I don't know if there's any further questions. It's #1 to unmute your line.
Good afternoon. Hello. This is Sergey from Espangel. Just a couple of quick questions. Hello?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm heard. One is, given how the drilling been going well so far, how much more drilling, or are you planning to do more drilling after phase 1 before you will be starting putting together some, a maiden resource on the project?
Yes. Look, we once we've completed the drill program and the assays, which I say have been delayed a bit, we will be progressing a JORC resource for Calibre. But obviously, with Calibre well underway now, we think it's prudent to examine the rest of the license. As you know, there are a number of key targets there that we know from historical data look pretty interesting. The most obvious one that we've seen is Chiesa, and that's probably the one that we would drill next. But there are a number of others, Mwezu, Fuiji. So those are all additional interesting targets that we would look to do further work on. And that is one of the obvious reasons why we want to bring a partner here, because we cannot by ourselves drill 1,000 square kilometers. It's just far too large, and so we do need another partner to help really sort of kick off some of this additional drilling. But yes, we will be moving into other areas. Most likely once the rainy season is finished, we've finished our analysis of where best to put our money in the next drill rigs.
Okay. And another thing, with these two metallurgical tests that you do on the production of a separate cobalt concentrate, do you think it's going to affect your timing of the CSD plant commissioning, or it can be incorporated into the process relatively quickly?
No, I think we will do that, contemporaneously. So, there's really not a huge amount of work to be done on the sort of, if you like, dry commissioning, particularly of the front end of the plant, and that's almost there. So the test work, as I say, on this alternative method, sodium bisulfate, is underway. We're using the University of the Copper Belt to process all this. They've got quite sophisticated plants and crushing systems and so on. So we're doing that in the lab, but we'll be getting the team to move to our plant to run it, as I say, on a batch basis to see how it works in situ, if you like, because that is key. Doing it in the lab is one thing, doing it in the plant is another. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do this step by step.
Okay, so ideally, like, when would you want to see like a separate cobalt coming off the of the plants?
Well, I mean, look, on a batch processing, I mean, again, I don't want to sort of promise anything, but we could get something, as early as mid or late December. We'll have to see how that goes.
Hi, all. It's Sultan from West Angel here. I just wanted to join in and say thanks to Nick, and in relation to Sergei's question about time estimates, etc. I think that at the moment it's probably impossible to give precise estimate, and hence it's probably not going to be very wise to set out an estimate to the market. But obviously the company is going to be keeping the shareholders and the market in general updated in due course.
Yeah. Thank you, Sultan.
Perfect. Good enough. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for your time. Very helpful. Cheers.
Okay.
Just another quick one from me, Nick. In terms of the aero survey that you've just done, when do you expect we'll get some results back from that? And is the point of that to, as you said before about the drilling, is it to sort of find more interesting targets so you can divert your efforts towards perhaps something that's going to be a good discovery?
Correct. So it's twofold. One is to match it against what we're seeing at Calibre and to make sure we're not missing out anything there. But yes, two, it's to compare it against, as I say, the sort of geochem historic and potential new data, not potential new data that we have in terms of the soil sampling we've done across the property. As I say, we're sort of processing 28,000 soil samples now. We're doing it about, I think, 350 a day. So that should be finished within the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks or so. Bear in mind there's Christmas as well. But yeah, so once we have that, we'll be able to then compare the airborne survey, and now the work on unpicking the airborne data has already started. But obviously we're going to prioritize the sort of data we have around known existing anomalies, like I say, for instance, Chiesa or Fuji or Wambuzu, rather than so that we'll process the soil samples around those areas before we do the rest. So we'll prioritize to get early results, and so we can move quickly on where we think are some of the more interesting anomalies.
Is the drilling that you're doing at the moment, is that contained within one of the targets that were defined in the Anglo's original top, I think, 30 or something, which I think we have 9 in the top 10. Is it just in one of those targets at the moment?
Yeah.
So if we've still got 8 targets to go and look at.
Exactly. So we're only drilling in Calibre, which I'd say, as I say, is a sort of 4 square kilometre small mining license area. So there's a lot still to go for.
And does that aero survey only cover Calibre, or is it covering the other targets as well?
No, it covers the whole 1,000 square kilometres.
Wow. So this is where you could see, some of the other targets being prioritised for further drilling.
Absolutely. So what we'll do is we'll process the soil sampling targets, soil samples that we've done, say, around those other targets that we know of, in Anglo's list, for instance, Chiesa, and we'll prioritise those against the data we have from the airborne survey and see if they match and see if, going after Chiesa, for example, is the next best move.
Excellent. Very exciting. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
So are there any other questions from anyone?
Okay. Well, look, everybody, thanks very much. I know it's lunchtime. I'm sure, you'll want to have a sandwich. And I think, we're sitting, as I say, on an incredibly exciting piece of property here. There's a lot of news flow to follow. I mean, we've obviously got all of the sort of potential news on further the drill holes that I've mentioned, the assays that have been slightly delayed. We've got news flow on the plant. We will be coming back to the market very soon on potential new targets following the airborne survey and obviously the various discussions that we're involved with in terms of NDAs that we have at Zamsort as well. So look forward to as I say, hopefully continuing news flow and exciting news flow. But in the meantime, thank you all for your ongoing support.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
I think we'll end the call there.